Salam and welcome back, everybody, to our podcast, Unapologetic, the Third Narrative.
Our original and authentic initiative in light of the war in Israel and Gaza.
A platform where we will share our identities, views, and experience from the ground.
Okay, Amira, after a while that we haven't recorded now, we've, giving a little quick spoiler, we've been abroad for a little while, and we're going to talk about that in this episode. But today, we're having a very special episode.
I know we've said that before, but it is special in kind of a looking back way and also in a sad way.
Because today actually is our season finale.
For season one only.
For season one. Today will be episode 30, and we're wrapping up 1 year of this podcast, but also 1 year of war and 1 year of us being active in peace building projects and activities in this war. So this episode will summarize so much our work, this whole war in the past year, and this podcast itself, and what it has done to us, to others. And for that, we actually are not alone in this episode. For that, we have someone very special who's lingering here in front of me. I don't even know how to introduce her. Manager, producer, CEO, editor, videographer. What do you want us to? All of the above. Basically, guys, if that
the
person,
woman that makes everything happen.
yeah, it's like we always said, she does everything besides speaking.
Well, now we can't say that no more.
Now she's doing everything. So Evelyn, thank you for joining us today. And it's it's a good time to say thank you, because a lot of the audience don't even know that a lot of the things that happened for the podcast itself, our social media presence, our activities on the ground, the events that we're going to mention later on this episode would not have happened without Evelyn.
You.
So special thanks from us here.
Thank you, guys. Because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be in this field. I wouldn't be having this newfound passion. So it's an honor to be sitting at this table. And I never thought that I'd be in front of the camera, because I really prefer to be behind it.
No, we entered into this entire thing, this podcast, blindly. And you're the person that actually was kind of a sense of guidance, because we had no idea what we were doing in the beginning. We had all these ideas, all these topics that we wanted to talk about. And both our conversations with you and your tips and then implementation and taking charge also on this initiative helped us be where we are today. So that chair is fully yours.
Yeah.
This table is also your table.
And mentioning that, I will bring one more shout out.
I was gonna say. We actually have a full room right now.
Full room behind the scenes, because another person is with us today. It's a person who's been listening to every single episode since the beginning, giving tips, recommendations. Oh, you did this, you said that, maybe this here, maybe that there, maybe you shouldn't have said it in that way. So Adham, my best friend, is also here with us for the first time in the studio, and is also joining behind the scenes. So we are at a very difficult time, but we're trying to bring some festive feeling to wrapping up a year together in this project.
And obviously we have our sound and video person,
Uri.
So back to you. Since we know you so well, but our audience don't know how amazing you are and your journey, how about, and we'll guide you throughout the entire thing. We'll ask you questions. Tell us, who's Evelyn? Start wherever you want to start. Preferably, I don't know, where are you from?
Okay. My name's Evelyn. I was born in Miami to a Tunisian Israeli father and a Syrian Jewish American mother with some Ashkenaz roots as well. I moved to Israel for first and second grade, and shortly after, my mother decided we need to move back to the States because my brothers were a bunch of troublemakers. Sorry, Mom. And I grew up predominantly in a modern Orthodox household. You know, keeping Shabbat, keeping kosher, going to a religious school up until I was 14. And when I was 14, my parents decided that no more spending an arm and a leg on Jewish education. We can't afford it. Let's go ahead and send her to public school. And that's where I started to meet people that weren't Jewish for the first time in my life. That's where the journey began, Bonagid, let's say, for all the different cultures, backgrounds, which I guess led me to where I am now. There's so much to say. I'm 34 years old. I've had a lot of different journeys.
I've gone through a journey.
Yeah, many. When I was 22, I moved back to Israel by myself, and I wanted to integrate back into Israeli society, so I decided to join the army. And if I said I was okay, I'm gonna integrate into the society and join the army, I might as well do something badass. So I joined Karakal, which is a combat battalion, a mixed combat battalion. And
Was it the first or only?
it was the first.
Okay.
The first 07 Akshara, which is like the same as what men go through in terms of intensive training. And shortly after the first few months of my training, I realized I was disillusioned by this facade of what the army was, what I had signed up for. So quickly into that, I shortened my service from 3 years to 2. But within that journey, I met a lot of incredible people within my service. And I discovered that I'm a musician through the 2 years that I served. I had zero background in music. I had zero background in anything artistic, really. And somehow these connections that I made throughout my service allowed me to find my voice. And that opened the door for my music career the last 10 years.
And what brings you to this field? You know, from the, you've been in the music industry for 10 years, like you said. Where does that shift come from the music towards peace building?
Yeah.
And to being here with us with the third narrative?
I mean, music can be a big source of self-expression, political
Definitely.
self-expression, activism, even in the, like, not even politically, but also socially. But that you weren't, were you doing that?
I think I was doing that without realize I was doing that. I had been writing poetry since I was a kid, but I didn't even think that it was poetry at the time. I just really liked listening to, Alicia Keys and Tupac and Biggie, and like hip hop and Black culture was a very big influence on my life. So by listening to all of that music, it influenced how I created music, and it influenced me to be a truth seeker and always try to dig and not take everything for face value. Which somehow led me back here, and, the stories that I had been told growing up were just stories. I needed to go ahead and meet people in order to understand what reality is. And lucky for us, we got to meet. And I wouldn't say it's great timing, because this year has been incredibly difficult for everyone. But in terms of shifting my perspective, shifting my activism, shifting what I'd like to do in my life, this year has been a huge, huge turning point for me. So thanks to you two. That's why I'm here.
We're going to unpack that, maybe not right now, the turning points, because we are going to talk about that specific part. But first, let's break down what we're going to tackle in this episode. I will say that because this is the season finale, it's going to be a longer episode than usual. It's not going to be, I mean, our episodes are long anyways,
So
but it's going to be even longer. So buckle up. And I think we're going to start first by talking a little bit about the year of bloodshed that we have been through, where it's like we're going to center a little bit the reason why we started this podcast in the first place, and what has happened, turning points during this year and 1 month now. And after that, we're going to talk about the year of the podcast and what we have done, because so this episode is also going to be some sort of an emotional journey. Like, we're going to talk about very, very, very dark emotional things in the beginning, addressing the amount of loss, mourning, and grief that has passed on. And then we're going to switch on our accomplishments through the podcast, which is what keeps us going, which might also be a little bit a mix of good and bad. And then we're going to talk about the year of our activism, separately, jointly. And we hope that it's going to be an enjoyable episode. Obviously, it won't convey everything that we've been through, everything that we're feeling. But we had a feeling that we need to kind of wrap up season 1, because it has been 30 episodes, and then strategize for what will come next.
And on this note, I will also say to our listeners that hang on to the end of the episode, because there's also some unveiling of our next destinations that we'll be going to soon enough. So if you want to know where we're going to be, stick around to the end of the episode. And now, it's been a 1 year. It's been a 1 year of the war itself. And as we mentioned to each other before we recorded, it's virtually impossible to sum up every single thing that happened throughout this year without missing one tiny portion or one element or one thing. So instead of summarizing the whole year of war from start to finish, we're going to talk about 3 moments, periods, realizations, things that changed, points throughout this war that have been significant to each one of us. 3 points in this war, 3 things that have been significant to you, an aha moment that arose at some point, a thought, a change of perspective, maybe hope that arose because of something that happened, anything that comes into mind. Amira, how about we start with you? What's your first one on your list?
I suck at this because
we have notes.
I have zero, even when writing those things, like I was like, I have zero concept of time. Like I have right now, we're recording the episode. I don't know what happened before. I don't know what's going to happen after. I have no plans.
Guys, Amira's excusing. We've been writing it down. We've sat on it for 5 hours, summarizing and writing. And now she's like, oh, I don't have it. Open the laptop, Amira.
What I'm trying to say is that I might change my mind. That's why, like, I can't choose. Sure, it's like asking me what's your favorite X. So I can't. X? No, X as in fill in the blank.
This is a horrible beginning to this episode, I might add. But, okay, so let's rephrase. It's not necessarily the 3 most. 3 things that happened throughout the year that have been meaningful, significant, educational, things that you realized from the war itself.
Okay, so it's been an actual, like, really... like it has been a very like world-changing period of time for me, not just because of the podcast, but the podcast also like accelerates it. But it's realizing how censored I was without actually realizing it, that I was censoring myself, for how apologetic I was in like even before the podcast, because I come like in East Jerusalem, because there's so much truth for us to unveil. And I like went straight deep into the Israeli truth of me. Oh, I've never met, like, these are like the enemies. I know nothing about them. And I feel like I ended up taking everything from the Israeli side as truth. And that for like maybe a year and a half before the podcast. And it was affecting my personality too. I became like, we're at fault. This is like, I also became a little bit blind to the power dynamic as well. And I didn't realize it. And only like the past few months, maybe, with traveling so much, like things started to unveil, like of what, like the differences between things. But this is my second point, so I won't go into it. Like how many different viewpoints you can get into, and how easily you can be deceived by what's going on because of debating truth and false, and how articulate specifically is Israelis or Israeli Americans or Jewish Americans are in debating the past and finding loopholes to justify, like, no, you are wrong. And because I'm someone that doesn't come from a historical or educational background about the conflict, I would always say, I don't know. And whenever I want to Google something, in my mind, I was like, I can never know what is actually true and what is actually false. So I ended up just like going with it and not suppressing what I actually feel and believe. And also always also afraid of being like too radical or to scare the Jewish people in the room or the Israelis in the room. Or by being like more Palestinian, maybe in fueling something either in the Western world or in fueling something here. So, and something still that I'm dabbling with, but it's definitely a turning point where I felt like I fitted in more in Israeli society than Palestinian society. So I kind of removed myself from Palestinian society without even realizing it. And I think I'm starting to insert myself all over again in Palestinian society. So that's one realization.
Evelyn?
Realization.
I think, but hold up, like this, we can like have our input, but in talk, like it's fine.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
I'm just saying.
I didn't realize how powerful social media was up until the aftermath of October 7th.
Mhm.
Like scrolling and seeing every single country around the world importing what's happening here in every country's own way, and every society like looking at it in a different lens. It was really mind-blowing to see different languages as you're scrolling through social media. Different languages talk about the same thing, and so much polarization that it really created, at least in my lifetime, the most toxic world I've lived in up until this point. So it's scary, the realization of it.
The toxicity of the world.
Yeah. The more aware we are to things, the more mentally ill we become. Unfortunately.
Sadly, no?
Yeah.
I think the first one for me was something that happened relatively early on in the war. And it's something I mentioned in one of our episodes, one of the earlier episodes, with one of my friends who went and into the first round of the reserve. He was called for the reserve, and then he called me and said, "Hey, we lost." And I asked him, "What do you mean we lost?" He said, "We lost because I'm here with people who are preparing for this war, and you hear people from all backgrounds, doesn't matter right, left, Ashkenazi, Mizrahi, it didn't really matter. People talked about killing Arabs. That's the words that he used. Like, it's not killing Hamas or terrorists or even Palestinians. We're here to kill Arabs." And that's the moment, like the realization that this war is going to be different. That the destruction that we're gonna see is gonna be on a different scale.
Yeah.
And then when you see what's actually unfolding on the ground, you realize the magnitude of it, but also you realize how much, the Israeli public is hidden from it. For instance, the last explosion that burned the tents in the refugee camp 3 weeks ago now, they were not published except for 2 Israeli media outlets. It was in Haaretz and it was on the Israel Times, but I didn't hear anything about it from Khan. I was on the radio all day, channel 13, 12, None of them mentioned anything about it.
I feel like that's pretty regular though.
Yeah, but they mentioned earlier things that happened, like, you know, the tents from the first thing that happened with the hospital and the rocket that fell in the tents area, like in the beginning of the war. They talked about it. This one was like, there was a feeling of complete silencing of, and I think it's because of how horrific like things were on the ground. Like you can hear people screaming.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't in the first incident that we had in a refugee camp. And then, you know, throughout this year and particularly in the past few months when we've traveled, you talk to people from Gaza, and you know, we met so many different people from Gaza, and then you talk to them, and you know, every single one of them, their house is destroyed. Every single one of them talks about their neighbors, like their whole neighborhood's destroyed. And you know, these are people who are just regular people like you and me who just want life, and they have nothing to do neither with Hamas or with any other movement. And you know, there's no justification in the world for their houses to be blown. But it's not about justification in this war. It's about we're wiping out everything in our sight. So that vengeance in this war was very present since the beginning, and you realize it more and more as this war developed, I feel.
Yeah.
I'll echo what you said. The magnitude of loss, I think, is what it's still hard for me to comprehend. And I think when and I like sat with myself, was like, why am I not able to grieve and feel sad the way that I want to feel sad? Because I remember when, like, there were specific stories on the Israeli side that would literally like make me cry. But when it comes to like Palestinians, I would be like, I can't. Why can't I? Why is that? I remember having a conversation after the six hostages, including Hirsch, were killed. And I remember asking my friend, I was like, I feel so sad. I feel like I'm mourning Hirsch's death, even though I don't know him. I don't know his mother, but I connected with the story. And I was like, I don't feel that for the amount of death that I've seen in Palestine. And what she told me, which I think is absolutely correct, she was like, you can resonate with a single story. It's easy. There's a face, there's a name,
That's what I was gonna say.
there's a family, like it's an entire story. But when you have 40,000 plus people, how can you comprehend, how your brain as a human being can't really process that correctly? So it's okay not to feel the grief in the same way you would feel like if it was like someone, you know, their face, you know, what with the, like Hirsch, we knew what his room looked like it was very specific. And Palestinians don't, like, there are some stories, but it's always like the numbers,
But it's not
the numbers.
enough.
It's not enough. It's not enough. And I don't think anyone is to blame for that, because like survival is the number one priority.
The dynamic. But these people, yeah, they can't think about something beyond their own survival. I agree. Third
Yeah,
point.
People that are not Israeli or Palestinian, telling us that we're not Palestinian enough, or not Israeli enough, or not Jewish enough, or not this enough, or not that enough, or that just frustrated me. And so much external virtue signaling from people who have never stepped a day in our shoes, or have even had war on their front doorstep, you know, living in the comfort of your own home in the Western world. I think that just that's the point right then and there. It's just if you don't know what it's like to live like this, or you are not one of us, don't tell us who we are.
I think that's one of also my, where we're going to talk about where we were, but just like a mention of Berlin for a second. And when we were stuck in Berlin and we were talking, oh, what if we just like move here? And what if we just stay here? There's a lot of work to be done, da 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 da. And like the first like concern that popped into like my head, at least, was, that's the argument that I tell to everyone that doesn't live here. it would apply to me as well, then how is my voice valid to speak and advocate and like start talking about Palestine and Israel when I don't live there anymore? Like even if it was like just a few months, I felt guilty about saying that. Whereas the people that you're talking about have the audacity and have like the face to actually like say that, like, this is not an actual Palestinian you should be listening to. This isn't an actual, like, even the hostage families, like there
It
are many
doesn't
accounts.
represent.
Yeah, it doesn't represent Israelis.
Yeah,
Israelis don't want a ceasefire. It's like these are the people that the war is supposed to be about. Like this is supposed to be the reason for what's going on, and people are like dismissing them because people abroad, it's easier for them to cheer for war when they're outside than here. Even other, not like in the like pro-Palestinian stage, about Gazans wanting a ceasefire. How dare you? How dare you leave? How dare you want a ceasefire? How dare you want even like any sort of peace treaty with Israel? You need to like basically continue until you're sacrificed. So I get that frustration.
or even the concept of saying that this is a white versus brown issue. That's like a huge rhetoric in the States, is saying that Jews are white and Palestinians are brown, and it just creates this like race war.
Mm-hmm.
When like
'Cause that's
more
what
than
the US
half,
is so
yeah, I get it. No,
comfortable
I
with this
understand.
dynamic.
I understand why the conversation is there, because there are small truths to it, but we need to understand that there are Jews in every color, every shade. Sababa, there are Palestinians in every shade. We need to stop with these racial wars. It's a man-made construct. We need to separate that and understand that we're humans. Yes, there's also the concept of oppressor and oppressed, and there's a lot of things that we can tap into in there, but it's not about these white people, these brown people. Over 50% of the population in Israel are Mizrahim, are Arab Jews, even though my father hates it when I say that. We are Arab Jews, and
They're Arab. What can you do?
it is what it is.
But it's what the Western world knows. It's
Right.
how they simplify and understand.
Yeah, the binaries.
Yeah, they understand it. And there's also the concept of the like, yes, that's the population, but the leaders, like, who are the leaders of
Right.
Israel? Who's the people funding
Mhm.
the genocidal war going on?
Right.
It's the white powers that are funding it. So I like
I
they do
get it.
take
No,
it a
I
step.
get the some
They
truths.
do take it a step, like 10 steps more, that Jews are only white and Jews are only from Europe. Also thinking that Palestinians look a certain shade, even though also Palestinians come in, like my dad's family are all blonde with blue eyes. Like it's we come like in many different.
We have redheads, guys.
We have
like,
redheads. We do have redheads. That's true.
So it's everything, yeah. And the oversimplification up to a point of putting it to other people's rhetoric. I think that's like, you oversimplify it so you can make sense of it, but only in the way that it's comfortable for you to understand it, not in the way that it is. Instead of making the actual effort to like understand it from these people's perspective, not your perspective. For me, the third one is, we talked about earlier really briefly, is our community. I think there has been, and this is something I know Adham will be nodding along here in the background because we talk about it all the time, how part of, our community as 48 or Palestinian Israeli citizens, for a long time, or at least in my feeling, kind of has the sense of living in a separated reality. Like, we live in the same country, but we live a separate reality from the Jewish Israeli population. We live the vast majority in our own communities, in Arab towns, Arab life. And what happened to the state is not what's happening to you. What's happening to the state is what's happening to the state. And that's the war in Gaza is Israel's war, and the war with Lebanon in particular on our border is Israel's war with Lebanon. It's not our war. It's not. It has nothing to do with us. But ever since, I think, the attacks, and me and Adham talked about it all the time, that maybe when we are in this mess, we'll realize that, our lives are tied to this country. That we have the same fate, that, there's always that sense from our community, and my feeling is that, we are responders. We don't take action. We respond to what's happening. So, whatever is happening, we'll respond to it in a way to keep ourselves safe. And whatever happens, happens. If something life-changing happens now and there's no more state of Israel, so we'll deal with what's going to come instead. If there will still be the state of Israel, so we'll live as Israeli citizens and we'll take whatever comes, rather than being action takers and like to make one decision. This is what we want. This is what we're going for. And that was, for me, always a feeling of like, we need to be more proactive rather than responsive. And that materialized like the heaviest last year and I'm connecting my 2 points together with the judicial reforms. A lot of people I was very active in the judicial reforms, and I was trying to bring people to be part of it as well. And people said, it's not our issue. It's a Jews issue. Even though the judicial reforms talk about the judicial system in the country, which you are under.
Yeah.
And even if you want to connect it, if you don't want to connect it to civil issues, a government with unprecedented power will do whatever it wants in the West Bank and Gaza. Do you want that to happen? Like, why not take an action, even if it's not on a civil issue, on a national issue? But there was always that, no, this is the Israeli issue. This is the Jews issue. They'll fight. It's not for us. And maybe this time around, there will be awakening that, we need to be proactive. We need to be leading things rather than responding to things. That's my personal hope. That something like that would happen. And it sounds like there's, at least from Adham's examples on the ground, it sounds like some things are shifting in people's minds. Like, okay,
That they're part of what?
That we're part of this whole mess. We don't live a separate reality. Like, for a long time, like, we talked about it in one of the episodes in the Arabic radio during Eid al-Adha and the sacrifice holiday. Even the commercials were so detached from reality. The nicest prices available. Come and shop with us for the most beautiful Eid, as if there's no war going on and people are dying every day. Like, you can do a commercial for the damn Eid, but do it in a way that is also like, I don't know, 30% of all the what people buy are going to go to Gaza. Something like that. Like, do it with a more mourning, even though it's a horrible year. Let the kids wear happy clothes. Something that's connecting you to the reality. This is detached, as if we have nothing to do with it. Maybe now it will change. That's my hope. My last point is on the judicial reforms. I'll connect that real quick. Is that one of the most unfortunate things that I felt was the issue of the hostages being political. The hostages issue became political.
Definitely.
It's the ones who protest for the hostages are the leftists, and the ones who are against the protesting for the hostages are the right wing. It's horrific to see, like how this rhetoric is developing in Israel. And if you compare it to the judicial reforms last year, the numbers are negligible next to last year's protests. Like, it's shameful that these are the amount of people that are going on Saturday. And it's amazing that people are doing it, but it's nothing near the numbers we saw last year. And it shows that the hostages issue has become political up to the point of, like what you mentioned, of these are not representative. Because it became political, unfortunately. And that's another one of the moments of like a realization of how screwed we are.
Back to your point on 48, I think when things hit closer to home, that's when things are going to change.
Agree.
And were you going to pull up what we saw yesterday?
Yeah, I was going to read it, but I wanted to continue his point. No. But go ahead.
No, that's what I wanted to bring up. The laws that have been passed or are about to be passed.
Like, it's about, I know you're a very much two-stater because I feel, and you do feel like you're part of Israeli society, and you're saying that 48ers, I don't know if you mean they should be part of the entire scope of things and they feel disconnected, or you say that they need to feel that they're part of the state more?
No. From the scope. Not that we're living detached lives, even from our Palestinian people.
Yeah.
when things happen in Jerusalem, no one raises a finger unless it's happening in Al-Aqsa. Al-Aqsa is a mobilizer. But things that are happening to the Jerusalemites, the first time that we rose for the Jerusalemites as a Jerusalemites was in Sheikh Jarrah. Before that, nothing. In 2017, the U.S. embassy was moved. Nobody said it, even also in Jerusalem, by the way. No one said anything.
No one can say anything. So this is how I see it. No one said anything because as soon as you lift your head, your residency can be taken away and you'll be either out of the country or you can be detained in administrative detention for maybe years.
But people did that for Sheikh Jarrah.
People did that for Sheikh Jarrah. Why, Ibrahim? Because everyone was doing it about Sheikh Jarrah.
Exactly.
We felt like it was a unified thing.
Yeah.
Whereas when the American embassy was moved to Jerusalem, declaring Jerusalem the capital of Israel, imagine if Palestinian citizens of Israel that have the privilege of knowing the law, having rights to this country, came to Jerusalem and did something.
I wish.
That would have changed the thing. But my point is, like, I think we agree more than we disagree. My point is that Palestinians in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Jerusalem, and in like to the state, to the occupation, we're all the same. Well, I'll tell you why. The Knesset 4 days ago reconvened, and these are the points that they have so far. A bill to outlaw UNRWA, which passed.
I know.
Banning missions to like Palestinian missions to Jerusalem, which passed. So no Palestinian missions in Jerusalem. A bill to deport Arab citizens if their relatives commit terror attack, which is advancing. A bill that restricts Arab parties, which is advancing.
And I don't disagree that we're being more and more, what's the
Kicked
word?
out. Not included.
Cracked down, for sure. But if I want to go back really quickly in time and like one of the main reasons why we have this government in the first place that is doing all these things is because of our political parties. When 2 years ago, we had the government that took down Bibi's government. We had the first time an Arab representative in the government, in Mansour Abbas' party. The only reason how they were able to vote to remove trust from the government and basically collapse the government was because the opposition became larger than the opposition became larger than the coalition. Thank you. The vote passed because 2 Arab parties voted with Netanyahu. Because what they didn't want is for Mansour Abbas to become the main Arab guy in the field.
It's a big reason why they're trying to pass all these laws now as well.
No, but I'm saying we are being kicked out. But if we're proactive, we wouldn't reach to a point where this government exists in the first place.
Yeah.
That's my biggest issue, is that we have been sitting on the sideline, allowed such a government to reach such a point with us sitting on the back seat. Like, what did these parties that voted with Netanyahu think that's going to happen after you dissolve the previous government? That like an equalist government is going to come? Of course, people will come back. But we had him in the opposition. Ben Gvir was in opposition. Smotrich was in opposition. But your biggest issue is you don't want this guy to become even bigger player in the political game. So you were going to take him down for your personal interests. And then look what happens. They're all in power. Like these things are part of it. And if we're more proactive, we can do more. Like, obviously, the system's against us. The country's against us in so many ways. This government is definitely against us. But to say we have no tools of acting against it, I don't agree. We have, and we had, and we screwed it up.
So you still have.
And we still have. Exactly.
I think it's also a culture thing, though. Like, mind your business. Keep to yourself. Go to work every day. Come home to your family. Watch TV. Do the regular spiel.
No, I think it's because for 10 years, it was under martial law, Israeli military law.
That's like 70 years ago.
But 10 years, decade. I think that's how it is. It's like, put your head down, don't move. Stay in your place. Don't expand. Don't change. I think it built a lot of fear and regulated. This isn't a year.
Could be.
It was 10 years of Israeli military rule.
It could definitely be a factor. I think it kind of
self-preservation.
Yeah, it kind of applies to Palestinians here as well. Like, okay, it doesn't involve me. It doesn't have anything to do with me, even though it does. keep to yourself. Just do your day-to-day lives and
Make sure it's
Yeah.
survival mode.
Yeah.
Make sure you're surviving. Yeah, but it's coming to bite us in the ass.
Yeah.
It's like we're saying all the time, if in this election people are not going to vote, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, people better vote in the next elections.
Yeah.
I don't care who you vote for. Vote.
Yeah.
As Arabs, vote.
I think I think the cultural aspect would also be something that has to do with the reaction of 48 Palestinians. But I think it's like the thing that I like the visual in my mind is, you know how they raise elephants? They tie them to a lot. No, I'm not undermining anyone, but like they raise elephants when they're young, they tie them to a big tree.
Okay.
They can't move. They can't move the tree because they're too weak. They can't do anything. The elephant grows, it's on the same leash, even though it's bigger and larger than the tree, it also can't move because psychologically it thinks that it can't because that's how it grew up on it. So I think that's my analogy. I think that 48 Palestinians are the same thing. They think that they can't do anything. Whereas the reality on the ground is if 48 Palestinians stop going to work for 3 days, the
system will shut
state
down.
will shut down. It won't function anymore. Even the medical, like just medical stuff.
Specifically, yeah.
Just medical stuff.
Pharmacies,
If we stop for
hospitals.
3 days, stop going to work, this state would shut down.
I agree.
For 3 days, like for like 1 month, don't pay taxes, 20% of the population not paying taxes. We have the state like on a chokehold,
Yeah.
but we don't do it. Why? Because we think we can't.
But now,
Yes.
with a sharp transition, we've talked about some of the things, that resonated with us from this last year of war. But it's also been 1 year of this podcast. A week after October 7th, we had our famous phone call of, let's do a podcast. Let's do it. Like, it was as short as this. But now we're 1 year after. And I think it's a good time to think about and kind of like summarize and reflect on this year, particularly doing this podcast. And I would started with just, each of us to say, what has the podcast meant to each of you?
I think I touched on it a little bit in the beginning, that if it wasn't for this podcast, I wouldn't even be in this field. It's not something that I have been doing my entire life. It's not something that I had the desire to do. I like to really stay away from politics the majority of my life. Even when I met Amira, I like completely avoided the conversation of politics anytime we would hang out. And at a certain point, we needed to have those really hard conversations. And once they started happening, I think that's what led to a lot of the conversations that you guys had on the podcast itself, is the tough conversations that you and I would have in private. All the triggering terminology and all of the unlearning in order to relearn. So thank you for opening the door to this newfound passion of mine.
For me, specifically self-expression. Like I've always said that everything that I do is because I want to express myself, whether it's what I wear, what I do with my hair, or my activism. Because I want people to have the freedom to speak, to talk, for whether it's like Palestinians all over the place, women all over the place. And this like platform has like allowed me to kind of actually put that into practice. So I guess that's what it would be for me. And unfortunately, I feel like I've gotten to kind of an extreme where like politics is the only thing that I know how to talk about. It's the only thing where I allow myself to go creatively. Let's do a video for this. Let's do a video for that.
Tell me about it.
So, but I think it's because we don't allow ourselves to actually enjoy life right now because of what's going on.
We'll
so
mention
hopefully
that more in the behind the scenes moment.
But yeah, I would say like self-expression and more confidence in what I think about what's going on the political space of things.
Yeah, mine is similar to yours, honestly. It's that space where I can, finally put things that I have in my mind in my own way and my thoughts, whether people like it or not. And I know there's more than enough people who don't like, either what I say or what you say. But yeah, it doesn't, for me, what it is it's that space to do that. Okay, sure, people will disagree and wouldn't like it, and here I'm talking about people who actually listen to the podcast, not only listening, a 1 minute video and attack us, but yeah, for me, that space to be free to talk, to share, and to argue however we want. That was crucial for me in this year. It was kind of like self-therapy kind of a thing, like a therapeutic space. And then you realize what it means to others.
Yeah.
So it gives it even more meaning.
We interrupt this episode to express our heartfelt gratitude to our supporters and our Patreon members. Without you, we wouldn't be where we are today. So this is a reminder that if you join our Patreon community, you will have access to exclusive content and you will be the first to know when we have something going on in your city. So that is your reminder to join the Patreon, and you can do it with the link in our description. Thank you so much for your support. We appreciate it a lot.
I think that was the general consensus amongst all of the volunteers that I've spoken to, the majority of the DMs that I've read, emails, people just thanking both of you for creating a sense of hope that they thought was long gone, and also free therapy. So thank you.
You guys are being charged $200 an hour from now on. So now that we talked about what it meant to us, what was maybe, and I'm sorry, Amira, a defining moment? Maybe one of, I'm sure there were more than one.
Mm-hmm.
So don't choose the one. It's one of the defining moments in the podcast itself.
So what do you mean by a defining moment? Like something that, is it supposed to be positive, negative? Like what?
It can be negatively defining, could be positively defining.
Okay.
Defining moment for you, like an aha moment, and oh, this is important, or this is working, or this is what I'm like. It could be anything that you translate to you as something that is
Okay.
a pivotal moment.
I would say understanding the difference between local activism and international activism, and how you said in the beginning, Evelyn, that it's imported into different worlds. And it's very true. Like when we go to Berlin, we understand why the politicians are saying, why they're doing what they're doing and why the public is against it. And is it the right or is it the left that has adopted it? To see right now the presidential race in the United States, and how Kamala is talking about it, and how Donald Trump is talking about it, and how can we address it as Palestinian activists abroad is a lot different from how I address it here with my Palestinian and Israeli colleagues, friends, family. I feel like outside there's it's different. It's just different, and understanding that made me realize how the rhetoric abroad affects here and how the rhetoric here affects abroad versus how that rhetoric affects its local place.
Mm-hmm.
That's why when the thing about anti-Semitism and Islamophobia comes in, and how sometimes it's the exact complete opposite when it's here. It's like the anti-genocide protests here, and when it comes here out of the mouths of Israelis and Palestinians, it's the complete different from when it happens in the US or in Berlin or in the UK. I think it's completely different because it's the people of the ground using that terminology. It's the people of the ground expressing themselves and their pain. And I think it's made my life easier about knowing how to talk to the international crowd and knowing how to talk to the people here.
Yeah, I think I have something similar to that when we were in Berlin and I spoke to one business. And as you said, it's like you have that feeling of they're trying to show you that they're more Palestinian than you are. And I think at some level, this is also like you start to learn how to talk to different communities and understand how they're looking at things differently. So it was interesting how they're more emotional than we are. You could see, even you mentioned the difference between the Israeli feeling versus Palestinian feeling, what we talked about earlier, but even there was one mutual protest that was happening in Berlin, and I was there and I saw Palestinians and I saw Israelis, and they're standing, they're listening, they're invested. But the Germans and the other Europeans, they're sobbing. like you could see the difference between the Israelis and the Palestinians and other Arabs versus the Europeans.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're listening to a story of someone from Gaza and you see them sobbing. And they take it on a much more emotional level. And I feel that there was a disconnect between my passion about the situation, my care for it, and my express of emotions. Like I think there was a feeling of, why aren't you expressing more emotions? Whereas we're from the ground. We need to fix this shit. We need to talk about pragmatic solutions. Like I want answers. I want to talk to you guys about, what you guys can do to help us. And what they want is for you to express emotions and to be angry. And then there was that feeling of they're trying to show me how they're more Palestinian than I am. But yeah, I completely agree. It's when you go abroad, you understand that it's different elements in different places.
For me, it wasn't just emotions. It was more of when I express myself here as a Palestinian, anti the occupation, anti the Israeli government, it is used by people that want to justify things against the party that they hate abroad, or to justify their anti-Semitism, or to justify something. And when I want to address that anti-Semitism that is using my voice as a Palestinian, it is used by the pro-Israel folks to justify the genocide in Gaza and in Palestine and the occupation or whatever. It's like, see, even the Palestinian doesn't agree with the pro-Palestinians outside. So they're illegitimate, and therefore the cause of the Palestinians is not legitimate. So it's like we need to call out anti-Semitism and Islamophobia abroad, but at the same time, there's a legitimate cause here, and it can't come one at the expense of the other. So understanding how to navigate that is, I still haven't hacked it, but it's key to knowing how to talk to the international community and also advocate truly for the Palestinian cause.
I mean, it fuels one another.
Yeah.
Everything fuels one another. The outside rhetoric of, there are people that are already Islamophobic and anti-Semitic, and a lot of them, I don't want to generalize. There are many people that tend to use what's happening on the ground as a means to go ahead and express their anti-Semitism or their Islamophobia. And then there's also the actions on the ground here, as we both know, that create more anti-Semitism and more Islamophobia externally. If there's, when there are things happening in Gaza from Israeli soldiers, from the government, all the massacres that have been happening, whether it's settler terror in the West Bank, whether it's, closed military zones because of XYZ, Palestinians can't reach it. All of those things create more anti-Semitism in the West. And then when there's an attack in Israel from a Palestinian, that creates more Islamophobia in the West as well. So it's like all of these extreme actions by whoever's doing them creates the opposite effect externally around the world. And then it fuels it back and forth and back and forth. It's such a weird cycle to be in.
What about yours, Ev? What's your one of the defining moments?
Quitting my job. And deciding to amplify your voices as much as I can without having any sort of financial security. Just a ton of uncertainty with where we're even going to go, but my desire to amplify you and see where we can take this thing kind of overpowered my fear. So I'm happy I took that leap of faith, because here we are. Still financially insecure, but we'll get there at some point.
Snaps to that, we all are.
That's why we're looking for sponsors, guys, for our second season. We're just saying.
Wink, wink.
If you have ideas, send us an email.
Yeah.
Also subscribe to our Patreon.
For me, one of them, I think there's a few defining moments. Definitely one of the quick ones is the first maybe a few weeks where you see every time you refreshed our page, you would go up by a few hundreds of people. Like every 5 seconds you can refresh and you can see numbers adding and adding and adding. And you're like, okay, this is going viral. Like, and you're still like, that's only a few hundred people. Like in your own mind, you're trying to, minimize how wide it's spreading. And I had a belief in our message. I knew, I knew what we're saying is going to be important, and it's a valid angle that it's not being brought, and there was a gap that we're filling. And I knew it's going to succeed, but not like that. Not in that speed, maybe, and in that magnitude. And especially when you see the messages, I think maybe that's the other defining moment is when you meet people. You know, me and Adham, we were in Berlin, like our first trip to Berlin, somebody like chased us in the airport who like saw me, was like, oh, Ibrahim, like, you know, was like, wanted to talk and that she listens to the podcast. And I would have never expected to meet someone in Berlin airport and will tell me, oh, I listened to your podcast, and how important it was for her and her family. And, you know, talk about a 1 year when we, after October 7th, 2024, so many messages that we received either on our Instagram or privately of what this year has meant to people and what our work has meant to people, and like really emotional messages, to be honest. Like some of the things that we were sent was absolutely incredible, and that realization of just how much you really were important to people's lives. It's not a cliche. It's people who actually, like, this is what they feel, this is what they needed, and you realize that your work is important. It's not, we're not just talking for the sake of talking. And even if we were, other people are not taking it like that. They're hanging on every single word we say. Like, there's weight to that. And yeah, it's been kind of like a wow moment to me to grasp.
Do you feel accomplished?
Not yet.
No.
Well, I will when we solve the conflict. And moving on from that question, I will actually ask you guys, what were some of your favorite episodes?
Ooh.
Or let me phrase it this way. If you had somebody who asked you, hey, I want to recommend your podcast to a friend, what episode should I send?
Oh, that's a different question.
These are two quick ones. They don't need the full explanation.
Okay. I think one of the earlier episodes would be a good, like, kind of glimpse for someone who wants to know. Oh, no, wait. If someone wants to know the podcast and who we are, then.
Or like to hook them up to the podcast. Which episode should they listen to that they were like, oh, I will listen to more?
Obviously, it depends who this person is and
Yes.
what affects them personally. But probably the earlier episodes, specifically if someone doesn't know anything about our region and about Palestine and Israel. But it would be like one of my favorite episodes was episode 4.
The day after.
The day after. Because we were talking about our field and we were like kind of giving some sort of like feedback on and critique of what we think the field has done wrong and what needs to change. I like that we argued a little bit in that episode. It was also one of the first episodes that we kind of like winged it. We didn't really prepare what we were gonna say. So episode 4 definitely. And then we obviously have to say like the episode with Maoz is very emotional, with Mao Zinon, and with Jonathan, the son of Vivian Silver. Those 2 episodes were like by far one of the especially with, oh, you know what I also like? I like the episode where I interviewed you. I really like that episode.
That one?
Yeah.
I like that one too.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you?
It's Ibrahim in the hot seat, it's called.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a lot of people go back and forth with me on social media over the last few months.
Guys, Evelyn is argumentative. If you get an argument with
it's
her on
part of
social
my
media, she will
nature.
join. Like, she doesn't know how to let go.
I really don't. I'm a stubborn. Never mind. I'm
I
a
always
stubborn
swear.
person.
It's okay, you can swear.
I don't want to swear. I
People
know
have
that
complained to us.
One
Amira.
person has complained. I have
Few.
met ambassadors and people in government that have not complained. So that means I'm good.
For me, the 1 or 2 episodes that I always recommend for people who, for the most part, okay, because I grew up in a predominantly Jewish Israeli neighborhood, or that has been my surroundings for most of my life. Most don't know Palestinians or won't recognize Palestinians. They will call them Arabs, for like purposely not wanting to give any sort of recognition of the name Palestinian, the term Palestinian. So I like to have them listen to the episode 2, the identities one, and then the solution series episode with Israel. Because when you have someone who's religious, who speaks about what's happening, it gives other religious people or other Jewish people, or it gives it more credibility when someone religious is talking about it. Like, okay, maybe there is truth to this. Maybe there is an occupation. Jonathan hit it on the head with the willful ignorance in that episode. But I think those two episodes for me were the best to recommend for others.
Yeah, my favorite ones has been, I think, some of my favorites, 3 and 4 were very important, at least on an important level, of just giving this whole, thing in my mind of, this is what happened, this is what's happening, this is what needs to happen. Like I've been waiting to put that all out there in just one hit, and I feel like we've been able to do that in those 2 episodes. To the Israeli audience, I would recommend, now that we released the episode, I would recommend It Starts in the Classroom. It's also in Hebrew. It's our only episode in Hebrew, and I think they need to listen to this. Talking about understanding Palestinian identity,
Yeah,
I think it's
true.
crucial for them to listen to that episode.
Definitely. It creates a lot of empathy.
Yes. And for Palestinians, I would give them to listen to Maoz's episode.
Yeah.
And Jonathan.
Oh,
Yeah.
and there's also the Nakba episode.
And that was going to be in the challenging aspects, but definitely one of my favorites was the Nakba episode, because my grandma features in that episode, and it was also for me one of the things that I was going to mention in the favorite moments, or kind of like the defining moments, is recording my grandma and bringing our family story to the front. Like, it was an important step, I felt like, on a personal level, that putting it out there, putting my family story out there, and that people need to know who we are and where we come from. So yeah. So the next question is, what were some of the behind the scene scoops that we're gonna share here with our audience? I will start.
حط عيني بعينك. Put my eye
And
in
I'm
your eye.
putting my eye in Amira's eye.
Yes.
Guys, Amira's always late.
Who was late today?
3-hour drive.
Who was? I don't care. Who was late
3-hour
today?
drive.
Who was late today? Ibrahim.
I bought
Who
the
was 15
food.
minutes early? Amira.
She did that on purpose too, because she knew I was going to mention the lateness. She did all she could to arrive early today.
Yesterday also you were late to the Zoom call. Since we're spilling the tea, since we're tattletaling.
You know it. It's not the usual. We're doing a year together. You're always late.
Yes, I am always late, and my friends know it, and they're still my friends.
And it's annoying as shit. Like,
But when it comes to official meetings, I'm not late.
Minimum.
Not late. We went to Parliament. We went to. I wasn't late to these things because of Evelyn, because she's always early. No, but it's true. I'm either fashionably late or fashionably early.
No, guys, you don't
that's what I kind
understand.
of
Our
provide.
meetings, and like when we had our meetings the past few months, Amira gets up at 5 a.m.
It's true. I'm a morning person.
and our meetings are at 11, and then she and Evelyn arrive 11:30, 11:45, and she's up since 5. That's
Yeah, but I wake up really late. I wake up really late. I'm
don't
gonna be
help-
late. I'm
don't
gonna be
help her
late
out.
anyway. There's no reason for you to be late, but I'm gonna be late anyway.
Even when she's meeting me alone, she does
yeah,
this. And we bicker a lot, something
Yeah,
that
that's
people
something
don't
our audience don't know. Oh my God! Once, when we were in New York, and because like we were not fighting, but like we were disagreeing and annoyed at each other, and she asked me something about you, and I answered in a very grumpy way, and she's asked me, "Aren't y'all friends?" And I was like, "Yeah, but I'm mad at him."
I think
Thank you, Amira.
that's a really great part of our dynamic, is that we really like to argue with one another, but you guys don't show it on camera.
No,
which is great.
No, is it great?
Yeah.
We discuss. We've been arguing
No,
this episode.
you leave the argumentative portion at the door before starting an episode, because you understand that even with your disagreements, you know how to have civil dialogue without eating each other's heads off.
We're not bickering here.
Yeah.
No, we're not. But some people like it.
Yeah, but we're not Pierce Morgan.
That's true.
So, you know,
We are not Pierce Morgan.
yeah. We're here to build bridges, not burn them.
Because we know that we agree at the end on the same goals and things, and we know that we learn a lot from each other, even with you. Like I think like you didn't have the same beliefs in the beginning of when we were
Absolutely
friends and
not.
not working together. You had completely different beliefs.
Yeah. I grew up like super Zionistic, very prideful, very Israeli. Like my dad is like super right wing, loves Bibi, loves Trump. I didn't like them, but that's the environment that I grew up in. So it was kind of part of me. And there was a lot of unlearning to do. The second that I got out of the army is when that unlearning began. And it unraveled into today.
Then these two Palestinians came along and manipulated her. You actually have Palestinian friends. Like, oh, I know Ahmed from this hummus place. Like, that's the classic Israeli
I had a
answer.
conversation the
I
other
know
day
an
with
Ahmed.
someone. I had a conversation the other day with someone, like, 'cause we were, obviously I was arguing with them because that's just what I do. But I was asking, can I ask you a serious question? How many Palestinians do you know? This is a Jewish person who lived abroad for the majority of her life, lived here for a short period of time. Asked her, how many Palestinians do you know? One. Okay. And that one person lives abroad. That's a big problem. When you don't know someone who you claim to see as the enemy, or someone who you don't recognize, if you don't go ahead and cross that bridge and meet the person on the other side, there's never going to be any sort of peace.
I'll give you even like worst case is like there are these people, and then you have the other side that speaks in the name of Palestinians, like the self-righteous, right? Of like, you know, it's like the like I've had that in, I'm not going to mention names, but I've had that encounter with some organizations that are talking, and they talk as if they want to fix my problems, but they're looking at the world in their eyes and they don't know any Palestinians.
The savior complex.
The savior complex. That's like another, you know, side of the flip coin of you don't know us and our detailed lives, and you're speaking in our name.
So the whole shift started from the really difficult conversations. I think for the most part, we just don't want to listen to each other. So instead of listening, we either cancel the person in front of us because it's easier to do. We block them on social media. We ignore any of these rhetorics. We say we gotta go, whatever it is. Avoid the elephant in the room. Avoid this type of conversation because it leads to tension. Instead of facing it, instead of listening to the uncomfortable things that are coming your way, and having a normal conversation. And I think that's how everything started with us, was through those really tough talks.
We were talking about like what is stolen and what is not, like the concept of stealing the dishes and the difference between a Jewish dish and an Israeli dish. That's the conversation that we had.
I think why Israelis feel so prideful, prideful in Israeli dishes is because it's Jewish people from all these different countries that imported their own recipes and their own food to Israel, and instead of calling it where it came from, whether it's a Yemenite dish, Tunisian dish, Moroccan dish, Iraqi dish, whatever it is, they call it Israeli instead. It's not Israeli. We have to make it clear. Israel is a modern state. I think maybe the only thing that was created here is sabich. Correct me if I'm wrong. מה אתה אומר?
As an Israeli dish?
Yeah.
It just might be.
So like nothing was born here in terms of food. It was brought here from all these different...
I was going to say cherry tomatoes.
This is a fiction. This is not true. Let's not put fake news in our podcast.
But the importing of the different dishes here is why people call it Israeli food instead of calling it where it came from.
These are like legit behind the scene scoops, really.
Yeah.
Like we've had these talks about the food and we even had the conversation, remember, about Palestinian food, how it's not spicy.
Oh yeah.
It's like this whole thing, or about what's an Arab and what is not an Arab, and all these discussions. Yeah, so these are all behind the scenes stuffs. I will add just really quick that since Evelyn joined us, Amira finally had someone who can tell her if she looks fine in front of the camera. That also has been...
It's not about me looking fine. Don't make it kind of like a woman thing. It's
more
if you
about...
have shadow on your face,
Yeah,
or if you
it's like lighting.
If Amira looks proper on camera, and...
But it wasn't just her; it was you too.
Yeah, I didn't care. She did.
See, this is what we go through.
I just didn't care.
The attention to detail
I was like,
isn't just the female thing.
No, I know, but all I said was, "Is the camera on me? Okay, we're good. Let's start."
Doesn't matter if the cap on the camera is on or off. Ibrahim does not care.
I'm ready to
as
talk.
long as he's in front of the camera.
And I was like, "No, but you got to tell me the angle, the lighting, the this, the that," and then
it's important.
Ev joins and. She came to save the day. Last question for this segment is the challenging moments. What were some of the challenges that we, or individually, each one of us have gone through?
I'm going to say working with friends.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
It's written down.
Yeah. It's been an uphill battle. Because we live this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, there's no break. Working all the time and constantly not having, I guess, like regular human being time to do regular things kind of destroys your brain for the most part. And I only paid attention to it the second that I left to Paris. I realized, like, okay, maybe I do need a break for my mental health, because I've been nonstop for the last year.
God.
I need to chill out.
Thank the gods. No, you guys don't understand. Like this has been a problem. Like Evelyn said, like in general, working with friends is really challenging. And, we each have different thoughts, ways, ideas, and even way of doing things and acting and different breaking points as well. But Evelyn doesn't stop working. Like this is a major issue. Like if she's happy, she works. If she's upset, she'll work. And if she's tired, she'll work. And she has energy, she'll work.
From bed.
From bed. So... And then, it's a problem because then me and Amira look at each other like, shit, we're not doing enough next to what she's doing. So yeah, that's that. And Amira does this too a little, because you mentioned it, of like not knowing how to do anything but talk about politics.
No, I think this last few days,
thank God.
It's been I think it's been the first time I posted about something that has nothing to do with.
I saw that actually. I was surprised. I have to say.
It was the first time I post anything on my own social media that has nothing to do with.
Because guys, we were in Berlin. We agreed that none of us will open our laptops. Of course, Evelyn, like the promise was from Evelyn because she's working all the time. Of course, she couldn't not break the promise.
You were the one that called me and asked me a question, and then I started working. If you hadn't called me, I wouldn't have worked.
Well,
I blame you.
It's fine. But then after that, I went out to meet people, and you guys are staying at home, and you too.
Listen, Berlin is cold.
Yeah,
I'm not used to Berlin being cold.
That. You guys
Plus,
do that when we're here too.
I didn't know how. Like even in Paris, we were in Paris.
Yeah, we didn't know how to be outside.
It was Maoz's birthday, and we sang a happy birthday to him. And after that, I legit had a panic attack.
I remember you felt bad, and I was like, Maoz is singing. What's your problem?
Maoz can sing. I couldn't. I was like, how could I? How could I? How could I?
Thing.
Yeah.
Like,
I know,
why are we able to go ahead and have fun and be out of the country and like do normal things when all of this destruction is happening? Yeah, but it's beyond work. We were at a restaurant. There was alcohol there. Like we're celebrating his birthday. Like I didn't. It felt bad. Like, and I know that you felt even worse.
But at the same time, I didn't want to drag both of you back, so I like sat down and suffered in silence and watching. Like you also you let go a little bit. Like you went outside.
Right,
You
but
smelled.
I was having political conversations outside.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. Yeah, if I know, that would have calmed my my
I
panic attack down. But in my mind, I was like, why are we here? Like, why are we here? It was also difficult. I'll tell you why. Because when we go to these places like Paris, for example, and we do that entire event that was really, really successful, and then they end up clapping and thanking us for something that we didn't do shit. We really didn't do anything. People are still dying. The hostages are still in Gaza. The Lebanon is becoming worse and worse and worse. And they're clapping and like cheering for an accomplishment, which for them, fine, it was an accomplishment because they're both parties in polarization. They never come together. And they finally made something with our voices that made them come together, which is an accomplishment for them. But for me, I was like, why? This is bullshit. Like in my mind, because we're going to come back to this reality and nothing is going to change for us. They're going to build on it and it's going to improve or maybe do something with it. So that was hard.
But in general, you guys don't know how to take proper breaks.
I don't know. No, my
Like, I mean, if Amira's not working, she's just not like she's not
my friends are my colleagues.
resting either. Like, ugh.
But I think it's a form of
Coping.
yeah, it's a coping mechanism. Like instead of having a normal life and feeling that guilt, I'd rather put all of my time into doing this. I don't care if I am burnt out completely. It's something that I need to do. It's a responsibility. And if I don't do it the same way that you don't do it, the same way that you don't do it, we feel bad that we're not doing it.
Yeah, I get it. But also, like, in the same time, you know, when, I don't know, even in Berlin, just going out and just me being with people.
Yeah.
It,
No, you are fully open.
But
you
it also
open,
brought
yeah.
more opportunities.
Yeah. When you're open, you
Like,
create the opportunities for
people
yourself, for sure.
act, people engage. I will tell you guys that I had a couple of people who were there who saw me in the last day and they were like, well, we only saw Amira and Evelyn on the first day and then that's it.
Yeah.
Like, they wanted to see you more. Like, people would have hoped that you're more engaged with them. That I felt that this, at least, you know, you're taking your kind of a break, but you're also engaging with the community.
But it's also the type of people that
But
we
it's also
are.
type of,
yeah, like
yeah, it's a
you're
type of
super
people.
social. I am not. Like
I also get drained. Like I get like after that event, it took me a lot. And also talking, like it's always me talking. And sometimes I just want silence.
Yeah.
No one speaking. Not me talking. Like even Maoz, I had that when we went with Maoz to New York. We went to, what was it called?
Producer Mondays.
Yes. And I saw Maoz enjoying his time. And you know what he told me? It's like, no one's asking me questions. No one's asking me about my opinion. No one's asking me about politics. And I don't need to talk.
Yeah.
So I will just listen to music.
And he was
no one
having
touched
such a
me,
good time.
and he was having an amazing time.
Yeah, but I appreciate that about him, that he's able to, you know, even though he lost his parents, he's doing all this thing this year, he allows himself to enjoy his time. All I'm saying is I hope you guys do that more. Because I want you guys to be
everyone in their own
happy.
pace. I will add one thing before we move to the final. Hada is our 1 year video.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
I worked on that for 3 days.
And it was doing so well.
Talk about challenges.
Yeah.
It was doing so well. I don't know if the listeners here got to see it. We don't know where we're going to put it now or how we're going to edit it in order for it to be. Apparently, it doesn't meet Instagram's guidelines,
community guidelines,
Meta's guidelines. We presented all, like I would say, pretty fairly the Israeli pain and the Palestinian pain, and we put it all in one video about 1 year of bloodshed. And it was kind of like a memorial thing. Like we were like mourning the people that died. There was candles involved. There was everything. We didn't shy away from showing anything. And it was taken down.
I think we have a lot of hater followers.
That is true.
There are a lot of people that follow the page in order to spew their negativity or spew their lack of support for what we do. And I think there were a lot of people that reported the video. A lot of people didn't like my song that was on it. And
it's an amazing song.
But a lot of people didn't like it. I was getting personal messages talking about, who is this white girl talking for the Palestinian people? Like, first of all, I'm not white. Let's start with that. Second of all, like, understand the lyrics. Understand why it was used. Understand why it's relating to what this video is. We need to have more empathy. We need to be more open to one another. And we need to realize that the same thing that you said in the speech in Paris, that Israeli security comes with Palestinian liberation, and Palestinian liberation comes with Israeli security. They go hand in hand. And how do we get that? Through empathy.
And now we've mentioned so much about Paris and Berlin that I think our audience needs to get a little bit of a perspective and an understanding what happened in the past few months, what we've been doing in the past few months, because it's really important. Because I think in the past few months, we've taken our activism a step forward with the podcast, a step forward, and to connect with the community a step forward, with the podcast community and the third narrative community. So you want to start, Amira?
We talked, like, we'll just mention New York because we've talked about it in previous episodes, but New York was our first ever in-person event. Unfortunately, Ibrahim couldn't make it for multiple reasons. I think the biggest one was budget, was budgeting tickets to go there. So we end up usually making sure that whenever we go to a place, whether it's one of us or both of us or the three of us, that we milk it for what it's worth and do as much as we can. And I think none of us had in mind that we would put together an event until Evelyn booked her ticket. When Evelyn booked her ticket to New York, we knew that something was going to happen, and it was like an amazing event. But like, let's move, and it kind of like motivated us to like kind of do more, and that I think it was the first time that we actually see a big amount of people that believe like what you said, we're not just talking, like the people actually listen to us. There's actually a community out there. And then we had our event with Les Galères de la Paix in Paris. And I think it was maybe the biggest peace event that Paris has ever had, revolving around Palestine and Israel.
Which is a women organization of
Yes.
Jewish and Muslim women.
Mm-hmm.
Les Galères de la Paix, Warriors for Peace, Muslim Jewish women from France who have been active and
Are they
actually
Muslim
have
Jewish, or are
Muslim
they Muslim
and
Muslim
Jewish.
and
Not
Jewish.
together.
No,
Like
no,
there
I
are
know.
Muslims and there are Jews.
Yeah,
Muslims. Okay.
yeah.
Farida.
Farida is Muslim.
Oh, okay.
And they, at the beginning, they wanted to do a movie about the peace community. The movie, they were recording it up until October 6, 2023. That's when
About the march. They wanted
Yeah.
to do it about the march.
which actually where they went home on that day. And then a day later, October 7th happened.
No, I think they went back on the 7th.
Yeah.
They
On the
flew
7th
on the
itself.
7th, yeah.
Wow. And then they realized that they can't produce this movie the way they did. And they had to, and they decided to come back. They met with us. We were part of their movie as well. And then they wanted to do an event on the ground in Paris that included about 1,000 people, 1,000 participants. And it wasn't just the third narrative.
No.
It was a coalition of the peace community. It was us. It was Rola and Alonli from Standing Together. It was
Aziz and Maoz.
Aziz Abu Sara and Mao Zinon. And it was Jonathan from Seats of Peace. It was really a big community. It's kind of like a statement that we're not these solo speakers and people who are just coming out of nowhere to say something and go home. We're a whole community that we're all friends. We know each other and we're here together. And after the event itself, which was really moving, we had really important meetings. We had two very specifically important meetings that we're going to give the spoilers on right now. One of them was with the Moroccan ambassador to France. It was us talking to her about how important Morocco's role is in being a mediator.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's no other government or country or entity out there except for the Moroccans that both Israelis and Palestinians actually like, support, and appreciate. And they see him as a partner. And there's a massive role for Morocco to play. And I hope she can convey that message. And the second person that we met was the mayor of Paris, who's known for her jumping in the river before the Olympics. Both of them were women, strong women. It was very impressive.
Yeah, I think with Hannah and the rest of the women from Guerriere, they really, outdid themselves with the amount of meetings they set up, with the event itself. It was really impressive to see so many powerful women doing these things.
And from Paris, because we went to Paris, we decided to go right after and take the opportunity. Might as well, we're abroad. We learned that we have a massive audience in Berlin, and we wanted to tackle that and to meet with this community. And after doing the New York event, we realized that maybe Berlin should be the next place to go. And we realized how big of a community we have in Berlin. And honestly, even seeing the messages doesn't do justification to the people on the ground when you meet them.
Yeah.
And that's when we did the event there.
Our event in Berlin, inshallah, it's a high ceiling to go over. Like, we really exceeded ourselves, I would say. Like,
It's a
hats off.
great event. Yeah.
We had such a good event. Like, it's weird because of why we're there and what we're talking about, but not just show up, but the effort, the amount of attention to detail. We had art involved. We have like
Arab Jewish
Palestinian, Arab
musicians.
Jewish musicians from like we even had like a Druze, we had like Syrian, we had Israeli, like it was, and the curation in the room was great. It was like music, dialogue, and also activity. We had people that do things that have to do with like social work or like psychology, something like that, that were kind of like safe, like what did we call them?
It was the awareness team. was the name.
Awareness team. Yeah,
awareness team.
awareness team. Whoever felt triggered by the event could go like tap them, and they would go outside and talk about it. Like, it was such a thought. And also the questions, I would have to say, like, the people that came, thank you so much, because you also brought so much hard, tough questions. I think the toughest questions we've ever answered about Zionism, about the legitimacy, or if like nonviolent resistance works even. Like, we had really, really tough questions that challenged us. And like, I also thought that the people also like enjoyed their time and even stayed after. Some people stayed after and grabbed really late dinner together in a Lebanese place. Speaking of Lebanon,
Stayed with me till 5 a.m. The bar.
Speaking of Lebanon, we had our event on the day that Israel bombed Beirut, on the day of the assassination of Nasrallah.
Yeah.
And we were taught, like, just the entire thing with our phone, like my phone was like in front of us while we were speaking, and I think you texted me in the middle of us like giving our spiel and talking about like that the future is only together and we need to be stronger than this. And then I get a text from Evelyn, and it was like, just so you know, they just bombed Beirut.
Yeah.
And that's like how ironic our reality is, and how like the duality of things, and how multiple things can exist at the same time. Like these people coming together, those with their kippas, those with their kufiyas, and at the same time, there's like what is happening on the ground, which is supposed to be a model of what the international community is supposed to do. It's supposed to be that place because they can afford to be that place. I have so much pride in the people that came and us for organizing it, and the volunteers. Like, we're going to say it in the thank yous, but we also visited and were sponsored by the food, at least, by Canaan, which is a Palestinian and Israeli restaurant. Co-owned, yes. That
Berlin.
Also in Berlin, that also like supports not just Palestinians and Israelis, but all kinds of Arab or Middle East, North African immigrants to open their own places of business. Like, they had like this Persian and Syrian place, or Persian, Syrian, and Palestinian like cafe, and they're like just opening these like safe places, these safe cafes or restaurants that will also like not only house and give like places of work for immigrants or for people that want like a safe refuge, but they also give like they give They honor the recipes, like whether it's like the coffee or it's the hummus or it's like the food, they honor the food. And instead of an immigrant that's coming like what they say, like fresh out off of the boat and like just taking whatever they can with their homemade recipe and making it like less quality because of their financial situation, they believe in like raising the prices but making it more authentic to what it actually is, and actually like bringing it to Berlin and not making it from scratch in Berlin.
Yeah,
So I like that a lot.
me too.
Yeah, and
There-
there were so many people who helped us.
Yeah, there are a lot of thank yous. Rike, her attention to
Wow.
detail really helped us make the event possible. She's the person who manages the venue in
The
which we had the
church.
event, the church, Rifo Moabit. Along with that is Luisa from Almep. She helped us a lot.
Yeah, the Alliance for Middle
Um,
East Peace. She also organized for many like parliament meetings for Ibrahim and I to
Yeah.
talk to like officials in Berlin, which was also beneficial.
Mhm.
The Moss, my
yeah.
roommate.
Our hosts.
We
yeah.
were being hosted for so long by people who are from Berlin who took us in, and we, like Amira mentioned, we got stranded because of the strike in Beirut, and we ended up staying there for about almost a month, like 2-3
No,
weeks.
it was like
Wahed Allah, it was like
2 weeks, 2.5 weeks,
yeah.
something like that. You stayed
I
a
said
little
one more
longer.
month, one more week.
Yeah,
It
you said
became
2
like
weeks.
about a
Yeah.
month.
yeah.
And
For us, I know you were saying thanks to Mas, but we have to have a huge thank you to Dikla,
Because
because
she hosted both of us.
not only did she host both of us, but she also helped create the connections for Berlin before Berlin even
That's
happened.
true.
She also volunteered at the events. She also made connections for after the event. She did a lot, so a big shout out to her.
Shout out to Dikla and the Moss. No, it's been like really like the first night I got into their house, him and Joe like made me feel like I'm their roommate. I'm not a guest.
Yeah.
And it's not something you feel to any house you go into.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's really, and I don't know how much they know, how much I
Mhm.
appreciate. So
There's also thank you to Tali and Karen who helped
Yeah.
organize things, and Tali who is making more connections in the future. We had the call with Tom and Seba from Clean Shelter, who we hope to have
Oh.
on for season 2.
Yes.
They're
So you
doing
need to
great
check
work
them
in
out.
Gaza.
They're doing great work, Israeli and Palestinians, and
Mhm.
Palestinian female initiative to build shelters in Gaza
Mhm.
and portable bathrooms. I think like
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
Clean shelter.
Who else? We did a lot in the 2.5 weeks that we were there. We accomplished a lot. We had some media interviews.
DW interview
I feel like I'm missing something.
with the New Israel Fund. We did a program.
Oh, that's right. We did something with NIF,
for
the educational
their educational program for German high schools to
Mhm.
get to hear our perspective. We recorded an interview with us that
Yeah.
we talk about our vision, our perspective.
Yeah.
And there was independent journalists who talked to us. There was
We were on Shai's podcast. Also.
yeah, and Amira was on Shai
and,
Hoffman's
and,
podcast.
Joanna Hassoun, their work together is also really inspiring. You guys mentioned the music that we had at the event, the Kayan project, and
Yeah.
also
KM. KN and KM.
yeah, Kayan and Kayam. But the Kayam didn't appear. It was just one of the two, which
Yep.
is Mike Rouse. So big shout out to them as well. Their music is beautiful.
Oh, it's incredible. We could stay here and take up Uri's time.
We've been
and-
here for like 3 hours.
I know, but we kept them dragging here to know where we're gonna be next.
No, I know. I was gonna say that.
Nahan,
We've been
Nahan.
dragging you, but we need to sum up.
Yeah.
And the one thing that we've been hanging on our audience for the whole episode is our promise to mention where we will be coming next. So drum roll on next month in December.
We're going to.
We're gonna be-
early. We're in a few weeks. End
You're
of
gonna be there
November
before.
already.
Yeah, but I'll be busy.
But you'll
Well,
be
sababa,
there.
but people
We're
need to know.
going to be in London.
Yes.
Yes, we're gonna be in London from the end of November, looks like till the end of December,
Mhm.
which is gonna be a long time. And we'll be in London, and after that, we're already in talks about Australia. that will be potentially in March.
Let's not promise people because we still don't know.
I said potentially.
It's probably going to be after Passover. We'll see. We're still in the planning stages of that.
But to
for
our
London,
Australian audience,
it's gonna happen.
It's on the horizon.
Table.
It's on the table.
The thing is,
for our London audience, though, we are looking for any type of events, any type of speaking engagements that you'd like to have the Third Narrative speak at. If there are any volunteers who would like to host us, if there anyone that would like for us to do a workshop, just to expand the audience and the community and grow this thing.
And also to give whatever London you're in, like or the person listening from London, your institution, your community, whatever is needed that we can provide, we're going to be there.
Or places of worship, whatever.
Yeah.
Mosques, synagogues, churches.
Separate places, joint places, a place where we can offer what you think we can offer. we're ready. This has dragged. We wanted to talk about like activism that's separate to the podcast, but I guess we've talked about your Palestinian living rooms where you talk about the personal stories of Palestinians in Hebrew to Israelis. We like both Evelyn and I have been practicing protective presence in the occupied territories. In addition to us hitting the streets with protests, whether they're Palestinian protests, Israeli protests in the West Bank or in Israel. What else have we working with youth? And just know when you support our podcast, whether like the Third Narrative, you're supporting 3 activists on the ground as well, whether that includes donations or that include the donations that happened abroad through our events, or if you're subscribed to our Patreon with different tiers. So that is, you're not just funding or supporting the podcast, but you're supporting 2 Palestinian activists and 1 Israeli activist to do their work that you can follow by this podcast or through our personal social media accounts on what we're actually doing.
Yeah, because the season is over, but our activism will never be over.
Yeah.
And not until we solve the conflict, right?
Even after we do the work to bridge the communities, that's when the nice work comes in, the fluffy work,
the fluff work,
the music,
if we solve
and the
conflict,
culture.
I'll just become a dog trainer and I'll have a dog farm. And people talk about the business of the conflict, like you're here for the business. No, if we solve it, I'm moving to a farm. What are you talking about?
I'm so down for that at some point.
But yeah,
thank you to our audience.
Thank you so much
to
to
our
people who
audience,
are listening to us.
all of our supporters, Instagram, Patreon,
Facebook,
some on
YouTube,
Facebook,
whatever,
YouTube.
wherever you guys are listening to us. We appreciate everything. We could have been just speaking to ourselves without anyone listening, but the fact that you guys are sharing our content, spreading it, sharing it with your community, with people, like it's making our work meaningful. Because if we're just talking and no one's listening, it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
The only reason why it's becoming meaningful is you guys, and we appreciate you.
Do you want to do us the honors of the sign off?
No, but I'll do the song.
Okay, let's do that. You do sign off, you do song.
Okay.
For one last time for this season, one last reminder that at the end of the day, all of us, Palestinians, Israelis, Arabs, Jews, Muslims, Christians, Druze, you name it, all of us deserve better.